Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tommy John studio in New York City. I am your host, Charlie DiSturco, and this is Green Dot Daily, coming to you live every weekday at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Action app and YouTube channel. Drake May season is in full effect. The Patriots have named May the starting quarterback ahead of their bout with the Texans. How should you be betting this matchup? Stuckey and Chris Raybon hop on to discuss that and the rest of the rookie QBs ahead of some big games. Plus, it's do or die for the Dodgers and Padres. BJ Cunningham hops on to discuss betting the NLDS Game 5, including a few unders to target in the prop market. Nick Martin will also join for some hockey talk. But let's start, as we so often do in the NFL, and take a look at the three rookies quarterbacks ahead that have been in action every step of the way through 5 weeks here. And these are how they've performed. It's been the Jaden Daniels show, leading all rookie quarterbacks in passing yards. He's had 300 yards and 4 rushing touchdowns on the ground, as well as the Commanders are 4-1 and the best team among all rookie QBs. Daniels, the minus 230 favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Meanwhile, Bo and Caleb both sit above 500 with far less stunning numbers. And then to the right, you'll see where the props stand for Drake May ahead of his first start against the Houston Texans. His passing yards are down at just 163.5 as a 7-point underdog at home. We'll get more on Drake May in just a second with this Texans game looming, but we welcome in Chris Raybon and Stuckey to the show to talk more about the rookie quarterback situations. Guys, let's start with this Ravens-Commanders game. Obviously, Daniels, the front runner and Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's looked incredible. The public on the side of the Commanders in this one. They're just under a touchdown, I should say. 6.5-point underdog here, going to Lamar Jackson and Baltimore. Stuckey, I'll kick it to you first. It feels like the Ravens are the right side based on this number, but how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the easiest spot for the Ravens. They're coming off 2 emotional wins. They beat the Bills. It was a hyped up primetime game. They go on the road, huge game in the division, come back to beat the Bengals in overtime, now come back home for Washington. But I think the Commanders should have their attention here. Looks like Humphrey will be a go, which is big. And look, the Commanders have been great, but they've beat teams with a combined 6-14 record so far this season, and they won't be able to run on Baltimore. And that's been really setting up their entire defense. And Baltimore profiles as a team that can shut down running quarterbacks with their dime packages. And it's not like we haven't seen hyped offenses come into Baltimore over the past 3 seasons and just get laughed out of town. We saw it with the Lions, the unstoppable Lions and Jared Goff last year. I think they were down 35-0 before the end of the first quarter. We saw it with the Bills. The Bills were unstoppable. Josh Allen, MVP, all that hype, and they got drilled. So this will be up to Daniels and his arm, and it won't be on easy passing situations because they've been able to run the ball against the defenses that they face. So, yeah, it wouldn't shock me if they just get completely dominated here but Daniels, he'll take a huge step in my mind if he can compete in this game and keep it close, because I don't think Washington's going to get any stops. I mean, how's Washington getting stops in this game? Their defense should just get dominated throughout the game. So this will be up to Daniels and his arm. McLaurin's got to have a big day, but we've seen this story play out before, and it usually ends in a Ravens blowout.
Yeah, the team total kind of is where my mind goes. Chris, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this game. Like, do you tease it down and get it close to pick 'em just because, 6.5 that opens the potential backdoor, even if it's a blowout or 21-14 points? Things can change quickly with Jaden Daniels. We've seen that so far. How do you see this one playing out in your mind?
Yeah, I think for me anyway, this is probably the hardest game to handicap just because I think there's just so much we don't know yet about Washington's offense and defense. I mean, the defense looked like the worst defense in the league through a couple of weeks. They have been better. They've been able to blow out some teams, but they've been bad teams, we think. So I would tease it down. I think the Ravens, they still worry me. You know, as Stuckey likes to say, they play with their food a lot. He mentioned they're coming off 2 emotional wins, and Lamar Jackson just 17-25 against the closing number as a home favorite. We've seen the Ravens get up big and then let teams back in the game, or we've seen the Ravens just inexplicably go down big and have to claw their way back. So, this Commander team has been good enough and put enough, 40 burgers on the board that I think you do worry a little bit just about the Ravens coming out a little sleepy, a mistake or two. And next thing you know, they do find themselves in a precarious position. So I feel most confident teasing them down. You still have that, for what it's worth, that Lamar Jackson against the NFC, he's only lost one time outright in his career. I believe it was to Daniel Jones of all people, but he's been good, but he hasn't, they haven't been great as big favorites. They haven't been great at home as big favorites. So I feel most confident teasing it down, but I'm with Stuckey. I'm just kind of, for the most part, watching this one. And I think we'll learn a lot because I think we don't really know exactly where the Commanders are offensively or defensively, just based on the opponents they've kind of gone up against so far.
Right, yeah, it totally has room for fireworks. This game, one of the must-watch games of the weekend. You mentioned it, one of the hardest to handicap as well. Another game, though, that you guys seemingly have an easy handicap on because you both ended up betting it is Texans-Pats with Drake May's debut for New England. He's shown flashes in the preseason. It's obviously, or I guess it's his first start, because he's made a debut. He came in against the Jets. But Raybon, you, I know, also put in the Action app, the over on Drake May's passing yards. So please take me through that and also why you like New England catching a touchdown here. Yeah,
so with Drake May, listen, we know one of the things he brings is some more mobility compared to Jacoby Brissett. So I do think he's going to run for, at least 20 some odd yards, but the market was pretty much on that with his rushing prop. I think it was in the mid 20s already. However, you look at this, what he really brings is, with this bad offensive line, I still think he's going to be able to move around a little more in the pocket and deliver the ball downfield more than Brissett was willing to, because remember, even when Brissett gets time, he's a guy that does not turn the ball over. He doesn't like to take chances. So even some of the throws he was making, there wasn't really a lot of upside to any of those throws. So you weren't really getting to see this Patriot offense, operating, I think, the way Van Pelt envisioned it. Now you have a quarterback here who's willing to take some chances, I think. So you have Kendrick Bourne back. You have Jalen Polk, who's playing almost every snap now. Douglas underneath. I think you're going to have some opportunities. And Ramondre Stevenson is banged up. It looks like he might not even play. So I don't think they're going to be quite as run heavy, even with that offensive line in this spot. And then you have to consider, even though part of the handicap with betting the Patriots is, the Texans have been really bad on offense on early downs. They haven't won by more than 6, but the Texans still have a formidable offense. The Patriots are playing like the Dolphins last week and whatnot, but they might have to get some yards and go down the field against this Texan team. Mm-hmm. So I do think that you look at Drake May, at the yardage prop is in the low 160s. 70% of rookie quarterbacks since 2018 in their first start have thrown for at least $170, and 14 of 17 top 10 picks, which is 80%, have thrown for at least $180 in their first start. So I think the books are kind of basing this number off the Patriots, just their passing numbers of the whole year with Brissett, because Brissett's props used to be around in the 160s. But I think May is just a significantly different passer, and you actually could get some explosives with him at quarterback.
Yeah, it totally feels like Drake May kind of takes this offense to another level, a better level, I should say. And Stuck, I'll ask you, obviously looking at this one, Houston without Nico Collins, they went up big on Buffalo, nearly blew it in the end. They didn't look great against Jacksonville. They got blown out by Minnesota. That's the last 3 weeks for the Texans. It almost feels like this number is giving them a little bit too much respect. Am I wrong by believing that and thinking the Pats are live here at +7?
Yeah, I played some +7. I think May's mobility is the key here. Obviously there's a lot of uncertainty. He could be a deer in the headlights, but I liked his numbers under pressure in college, and his mobility is what's needed with this disastrous offensive line situation, especially against a defense that can get pressure with that defensive line. So, him being able to scramble, evade pressure, because Brissett just stuck in the mud at this point in his career. So, yeah, the Texans, the Patriots aren't a good football team, but you're going to give me 7 at home against a team the Texans just aren't operating at full capacity yet. If Sean McDermott doesn't go, full terrorists last week at the end of that game. Who knows? Maybe they lose despite a depleted Bills team. And then they don't have a cover on the year. Yeah. So the Texans, I'm high on them for their season-long prospects, but they continue to just get a bit too much love in the market.
Yeah,
they covered last week. They covered last week.
Yeah, I'm saying if McDermott doesn't go, just doesn't lose his mind at the end of the game, who knows how that plays out if it goes to overtime?
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting end of game and nearly an entire collapse out of Houston. Once they lost Nico, the Bills just completely stormed back, and it does feel like Houston, at least right now, I don't know if they're playing with their food or just kind of struggling. It'll all figure out, I think, in the long run, but definitely feels like a little bit too many points here for New England. The last game I'll throw at you guys is the London game. Caleb Williams, obviously, starring in that one against the Jaguars. Stuckey, early morning, 9:30 a.m., a little bet and breakfast. Caleb Williams off his best game. Feels like, it might be breakout season for him against easier defenses, but you like the Jags catching 1.5, 2 points in the market. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I just think these two teams are similar, or like I have them similarly power rated. I think the Bears are one of the more overrated teams in the league. I mean, if you just look at their wins this year, they beat the Titans because Will Levis vomited on himself and the Titans couldn't get a punt off. They don't score an offensive touchdown. They play that game a million times. Bears win one, and that's the one that they won. They beat the Rams with nobody. I mean, the Rams don't have anyone on their offensive line. They don't have any of their receivers. And they've got outplayed in that game at home by a bad Rams team that was with a depleted roster. And then they play the Panthers last week. They're missing half their starters. Half their starters go down during the game. Even their two starting offensive linemen. That's the one really good data point on the year. It's against the Panthers. They even lost to the Colts and with Anthony Richardson, which is the way worse version. If you look at quarterbacks this year, EPA plus completion percentage over expectation, it's Bryce Young at the very bottom. Not much better is Anthony Richardson. Joe Flacco, I think, is number 2. And if you look at just compare data points here, and the Jaguars, look, you're sitting at 1-4. The Bears a lucky 3-2. The Jags, they each played the Colts. The Jags had to play the Colts with Flacco. They won that game. The Bears lost to the Anthony Richardson Colts. And I only put up 60. I don't know how you only put up 16 points against that defense. And they each played at Houston. Both lost by one possession. Jags look much better in that game. So Jags are going to play a ton of man coverage here. I think that's a good thing. Caleb Williams has struggled much more against man so far this year. He's just been inaccurate. I think he's 6 of 26 on passes, 20+ yards downfield. I'm not buying this offensive resurgence just because they've been able to get the run game going against the Rams and the Panthers the past 2 weeks. Jags have a very good run D, so he's not going to have that crutch here. I'll take the more reliable quarterback and the team that's much more familiar with playing overseas in these spots. Give me the Jags here, catching the points. I think this is a coin flip game.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a coin flip game. Chris, Stuckey mentions the Bears' offense. That game last week might just be nothing more than a fluke. They should struggle against the Jacksonville defense that has been quite solid. You think, in general, offense is going to be hard to come by in this London game. So tell me more about why you like the under.
Yeah, so the number jumped up to like 44 and a half. And I know the Bears have some injuries on defense, but this is still a London game. I mean, I don't like the field conditions. I mean, look at that Jets-Vikings game last week. Dudes were slipping around and whatnot. And you look at this Bears team, still number 2 in pass defense DVOA. The Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence balled out 28 of 34 against the Colts, which are just awful, missing their entire team. So, yes, the Bears are down Brisker and Stevenson. They're missing a couple guys, but this is still, I think, an above average to good Bears defense. I don't think Trevor Lawrence will find it nearly as easy. He hasn't really for the entire year, except for the Colts game. And then on the other side, I'm with Stuck. I think this Bears offense got lucky by playing the Rams with no defense and the Panthers with no defense. And both of those defenses were very bad against the run. So the Bears could be balanced. And when you're balanced, it helps your passing game because the defense doesn't know what's coming. You can catch them off guard a little bit. And I think that's what helped Caleb Williams get some wide open guys downfield. I do think the Jaguars pass defense has a lot of issues, but I don't think that the Bears will be able to run as much. And so that offense won't be as balanced. And now you're putting the ball in the hands of Caleb Williams. So yeah, I just don't think we get. I think this line is just giving these teams too much credit for what happened last week in situations that are just nothing like what's going on this week. Also, didn't the Jags like miss their flight? So they're supposed to be the better overseas team, and I think the Bears got there first, and then the Jags they missed their flight because of the hurricane or got delayed. So I just feel like this is going to be a sloppy game. And you know me, I love me some unders. So I'll take that all day.
Yeah, you guys are making me a little bit nervous for my Shark Tank pick. You mentioned how you like unders. I like a ton of overs. And listen, if you guys get to have a pick in this game, then I deserve to have one too. I deserve my floor time. So we'll get to that in just a sec. But again, guys, we have to look back what happened previously on Shark Tank. It's time to roll up the sleeves on this one. We're getting dirty. We're going with Garrett Wilson over 52.5 receiving yards.
I like to invest in passion projects. I like to invest in founders and originators who don't refer to themselves in the third person. So
all right,
for all the reasons I listened before, I'm out.
If I'm going to bet on an over for a prop, it has to be a real home run, and a couple of yours in the past were. You're obviously 5-0.
All of them were.
But this one, I do have some concerns with. I gotta have more value here.
Oh, so, my goodness.
For those reasons, I'm out.
A perfect 6-0. Hello, Sharps. Welcome back to Shark Tank. I mentioned I have a pick in this London one. I think it's a great time to buy a rookie wide receiver. And that guy's Rome Odunze. Over 38.5 receiving yards is my pick to look to go a perfect 7-0 to start the season. Listen, Stuck, I know you're on the Jags. I know you expect them to play better, but they are a god-awful pass defense. 32nd in DVOA against the pass. They're 32nd in DVOA to the deep ball. What does Rome Odunze do the best? He's a high ADOT, 15 plus ADOT guy that gets attacked deep. So I like attacking Rome Odunze here. Think he could get this in one, let alone two catches with the deep ball. And you mentioned it. The Jags, yes, they're good against the run, so the Bears are probably going to be forced in more passing down situations. We're finally seeing Odunze get love from Caleb Williams. Their connection starting to grow. The rookie-to-rookie connection, he's been over this number in 2 of his last 3. He's gotten 20 targets in those last 3 games. He battled an early season injury. Now he's fully healthy. He's going to London. He's seen Malik Neighbors. He's seen Marvin Harrison Jr. have these big games. Well, how about time for Rome Odunze to put up another big one? Stuck, I know you like the Jags in this one, but if they're winning, that means we're going to get more passes. I know it's not a passion project for you, but I saw on Saturday you had a great college football day. That means you got funds to spend, and what better way to spend it than on me, who has not lost yet this season. Raybon, how many overs have I given you winners on? Every single one. Come ride with me. You've done it twice before. We can make it 3 in a row together. So, Sharps, what do you say? Do you ride with me and Mr. Rome Odunze?
I don't know how many times I got to tell you. I like to invest in passion projects. You show up every week with a wide receiver.
I keep winning.
And I told you, get to 8-0, and then I'll maybe start to consider an investment. And this is one where I just told you, like, Caleb struggled against man coverage. He can't throw the ball down the field. He's completing 20% of his deep passes. That is the way to attack this Jags defense, but he hasn't been accurate. I like the Jags. I have no interest in betting on a Bears wide receiver over prop. Like I said, get to 8-0. Maybe every once in a while, come to me with something that I would be passionate to invest in, not more wide receiver over props. 8-0, I'll start to have to consider my investment strategy. But for those reasons, and this week, I'm out.
I'm trying here. Listen, I haven't lost yet. I pick a game where we can all watch together, drink our tea in London, and watch an over hit. You mentioned the struggle with man. Well, there's some positive regression coming. At least that's what I like to tell myself when I am seeing this over. I think it's a great bet on Rome Odunze. Raybon, what do you say? I know you like props. Stuck just doesn't want to win money with me, but I know you do, my friend. Come on.
Yeah, we're going with this one. I have it at 47 yards. So even, I think the median is still in the 40s. And the one concern is, you mentioned, the last few games, Keenan Allen has just been a target magnet against man coverage. So he's probably going to have to take advantage of, the few targets that he sees. I don't know if he sees, 6, 7, 8 targets in this game. But I do have the Jags defense giving him some explosives here. I have his, like I said, I have his yardage projection at 47 on average. So I think he clears this more often than not at this number. So we're riding again.
Stuckey, do you really want to miss out on this with me and Chris? We are 2-0 as a group. You should come ride and make this a little trio right now.
2-0. Wow. I mean, I'm rooting for you guys. But you also had a comment that you are immune to regression, which scares me a bit. Like I said, get to 8-0. 6-0, it's a good start. But look, I went 10-0 in college football. I could go 1-10 tomorrow. So let's get 8-0, and maybe I'll start to consider these non-passion projects. But this formula has been working. Why are we going to switch it up?
Well,
I don't invest. You cash your wide receiver over prop, and we move on.
But listen, sometimes it's fun to be square. It's hip to be square, they like to say. And listen, it's like, I'm just here as someone looking for investors to try and make some money, right? Like, that's my passion, is to make you guys money. And that's what I've been able to do thus far. I might have said I'm immune to regression, but what has happened so far is that every single week I've come on, and every single week I've given a winner. We'll see that on Sunday morning when Rome Odunze goes over 38.5 receiving yards. Chris, it's a pleasure doing business as always. Stuckey, best of luck on the rest of your picks. I'll see you guys next Friday. And if you want access to all of Action Pro's projections, make sure to sign up for our annual subscription that is currently on sale. Access includes exclusive player pop picks from Sean Kerner and other members of the Action Analytics team. You'll also get access to exclusive expert articles, our best spread, money line, and total bets, and real ticket and money percentages. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today and use code GDD20 at sign up. One more time, that's code GDD20 at sign up for $20 off.
Last one in the lightning round. There's hope. Drake May, it's May time. Patriots +7, and it could be gross out weather-wise. So we're happy that May's starting at quarterback, but the weather does not look great. It's going to rain Sunday. Good chance of rain. Won't be too cold. It's not quite November, December weather in New England. But once again, a Patriots under. But you like the Pats and the 7 and the under. You're going to same game parlay this.
Yeah, I'm going to same game parlay it. It's +240 to take the under and the Pats plus the 7. And I usually do these because I think they're correlated, and because, quite frankly, if I'm going to play something this gross, the Patriots, I need a little extra juice for my money. So give me the +240. Look, Drake May, I thought it was real weird that we're starting our rookie quarterback against this really good defense, against Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. Here's the thing. Jacoby Brissett is a statue. He cannot move around back there. The thing that Drake May specifically is good at in the scouting report is moving in the pocket, throwing off platform, handling the pressure. So I actually think maybe on purpose they're starting Drake May in this game to give themselves a little bit of some juice here. Brissett, the Patriots are only averaging 12.5 points a game. They haven't cracked 20 with him. So you get a little more variance here. And with as bad as the Patriots offense has been, in this case, I like the variance. Houston is the #1 luckiest team in our luck ranking. So this is a luck play here on the Patriots. I like the Pats plus the 7, but if I do like them plus the 7, I have to feel like it's an under. I have to feel like those are correlated. So I'll put those together. Patriots +7, under the 38, a same game parlay at +240.
We've got a do or die game 5 tonight out in the National League as the Padres and Dodgers play for a spot in the championship series where the Mets await. Taking a look at where the market stands ahead of tonight's game, the -142 favorite Dodgers have garnered over 80% of the bets. The over also getting similar love in the market from the public. Big surprise here with the favorite and the over getting over 4/5 of the money, or tickets I should say, and by big surprise I mean none at all, as we welcome BJ Cunningham in to talk more about this Game 5 ahead. BJ, we're going to play a little game of bet or pass. I've got 4 questions for you. We'll start with the obvious one here. The game tonight, right? The Padres, Dodgers. The Padres are the underdogs. Action Network's sweetheart Padres. Everyone has a ticket on them in the World Series to win the National League. Well, it felt so good at 2-1. Now it's 2-2. Do or die, the Padres as underdogs. So I ask you, do you bet or pass on the Padres?
I'm going to pass tonight. I think the line is right where it should be. You know, Game 4 kind of opened things up for the Dodgers and showing that they can do a bullpen game and be very successful with it. Now, it's pretty easy to do a bullpen game when you have a 5-run lead in the first 3 innings. But in any case, I think what you'll see tonight is the Dodgers heavily utilize that bullpen. Even though Yamamoto is starting, everybody's going to be involved. And any sign of trouble for Yamamoto, I think he's coming out. And although the Padres do have a better bullpen, with the Dodgers being at home, I think this line is right in line where it should be in the market.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. A bit nerve-wracking as someone who has a 16-1 Padres future ticket to win the NL, just knowing what the Dodgers are able to do. But you think, they see Yamamoto well, they saw him well. Can they continue to ride the hot hand of Darvish? Only time will tell. But speaking of Darvish, I have to ask, I think it's pretty, you kind of mentioned it too with Yamamoto a bit, like reading into this Game 5, do or die. The managers have this plan, and obviously all things get thrown out the window. The first, second trouble arises. So Yu Darvish's strikeout right now, his prop is right around 4.5. So I ask you, bet or pass on his under 4.5 strikeouts?
I'm betting that because I think what's going to happen in this game, I know Darvish went 7 innings in Game 2, but the Padres also had a big lead, and they didn't really need to utilize their bullpen that much. And even in those 7 innings, he only struck out 3 batters. And that's kind of been the theme for Darvish as he's gotten later on in his career. His strikeout rate has taken a pretty significant dip. And even the first 2 times through the order of the season, his strikeout rate is only around 22%. So I'd honestly be shocked if he saw the order a 3rd time through. It would take the Padres having some type of huge lead. And I think any sign of trouble, they're going to go right to their bullpen. So, and the Dodgers have been hitting the ball pretty well the last few games. So it would really shock me to see Darvish sit out there for 7 innings. And even if he does, I'm not sure his strikeout rate garners, setting this total at 4.5.
Yeah, it does feel like a bit high, maybe almost a full strikeout too high, just considering the fact that you mentioned the bullpens, like to have Jason Adam, Tanner Scott, Estrada, Suarez, Hoeing, they have so many guys that it really feels like the second trouble arises, the Padres should go to their pen because it's the best in baseball. But the same can be asked about the Dodgers right now. They just deployed the bullpen game in Game 4. It obviously worked to so much success. Yoshi Yamamoto getting the start tonight for the Dodgers. He was crushed by the Padres in Game 1. So I ask, is his strikeout rate, right, or his strikeout prop is right around 3.5. Do you bet or pass on that under?
I do bet that under. And I think what you're going to see is similar to Darvish. I think Yamamoto might only see the order the first time through because everybody for the Dodgers is available, including Jack Flaherty. And I think he might be involved in the 2nd, 3rd, or maybe even 4th inning of this game. You mentioned Yamamoto got blown up in that first game. He was able to go about 3 innings, but that was also Game 1. This is do or die, right? If he gets into any sort of trouble in the first inning or even the 2nd inning, I think he's going to get pulled. He does have a very high strikeout rate, but the Padres have the lowest strikeout rate of any team in baseball against right-handed pitching. And they've obviously been hitting the ball very well in this series outside of Game 4. So, and Dave Roberts, even after the game, said that they really liked the idea of doing another bullpen game because it was so successful in Game 4. So again, I don't even think Yamamoto is going to see the order 2nd time through. I think it's going to be 1 time through, and then they're going to go right to Jack Flaherty or just to the rest of their bullpen because it's do or die now. And in any sign of trouble, he's coming out. So 3.5 seems a little bit high for a guy who at maximum is probably only going to go about 3 innings.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the plan that the Dodgers deploy here, right? We see the Tigers, their bullpen entire game has been so successful. They're in a do or die game against the Guardians tomorrow. And then we saw the Dodgers be able to run a bullpen game to perfection. It also feels like the Padres might have a number on Yamamoto, like even in the series overseas and then last game out, they really don't swing and miss much on him despite his nasty stuff. Just 1 strikeout, you mentioned it, in those 3 innings that he had in Game 1. You'd imagine a lot less batters faced the 2nd time through. So definitely at plus money feels like a great bet as well. The last one I'll throw out here is Will Smith to get a hit minus 185. Yes, we're not going to talk Shohei Ohtani or Fernando Tatis Jr. or Luis Ariz. Will Smith, because I know you talked about him on the Payoff Pitch podcast, which, by the way, is out, and you can go listen to BJ's breakdown of this game, every little angle and a deeper analysis beyond. So Will Smith to get a hit, minus 185. He's probably going to be batting 5 or 6 for the Dodgers tonight. Do you bet or pass Will Smith?
I'm going to pass on him. I really don't think he has a good chance to get a hit in this game because he only has one hit this entire series. Yeah, it was a home run in game 4. But the thing about Will Smith is he's a fastball hitter. Like if you look at his numbers against any type of breaking pitch, he has a 208 expected batting average. And against any type of off-speed pitch, his expected batting average is 184. And Darvish, we think he's going to go a little bit shorter, but at least for the first time part to the order here, Darvish has 8 different pitches that he can throw. He has 4 different breaking pitches. So that's all he's going to throw to Will Smith. And Smith obviously didn't get a hit off him in game 2. And the Padres can bring whoever out of their bullpen to throw a bunch of sweepers and sliders and curveballs at Will Smith. So at plus money for a guy who has 1 hit this entire series, also he's pretty average against right-handed pitching if you look at his weighted runs created plus for the entire season. So at plus money, I think anything is good on Will Smith not to get a hit in this game.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I think that this is also another game. We talked about it, a few days ago, just trying to fade certain hitters in certain situations, like even beyond Will Smith. Like, does Kike Hernandez face someone in a high leverage situation? Does David Peralta, if a lefty comes up, do they pinch hit him for Solano despite him playing well? There's so many intricacies that go into a do or die game 5. So BJ Cunningham, appreciate you hopping on. A reminder, Payoff Pitch podcast. You can listen to BJ's further analysis on this game. Appreciate you hopping on, BJ, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Charlie.
Let's talk a little NHL on GDD, shall we? Even though the season is underway, you can still bet on season-long futures. And aside from the Calder, or Rookie of the Year, for those unfamiliar with the term, it's all Oilers atop the list. Edmonton is plus 850 to avenge its Stanley Cup loss and remain the favorites in the President's race as well. Unsurprising to that news, Connor McDavid is the Hart Trophy favorite at plus 150. Yes, plus 150 to win the MVP just days into the season. And one can only wonder, as we welcome in Nick Martin to the show to talk more about the hockey at hand, the Oilers. I mean, the love is out of control in the market already. Obviously, sportsbooks expecting them to make another run. They are, tit for tat, one of the most talented teams. But I'm curious your thoughts on them as a whole. Their entire rest of the season, your thoughts on them. They were opening night 6-0 loss to the Winnipeg Jets, so it's not like things have started off pretty for them, Nick. So what are your thoughts on Edmonton as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick one team, they would be my pick, but I also think betting the Stanley Cup now is crazy. Even if you look at the teams that really solidified at the deadline last season and came into the playoffs as heavy favorites, they weren't much shorter than this. So I'd rather wait and see how it goes. And I really think that about the President's Trophy. I do not think that this Oilers team deserves to be that much of a favorite in the President's Trophy race. I think that they are at a pretty big disadvantage, having played so late into last season. They had numerous guys get surgeries. I think obviously everyone's giving them their best shot every night. So I think that in that market, and I should throw in that I think their goaltending situation is going to make it tough to steal games when they're not at their best. They are really overvalued. I really don't like them in that market. There are some teams that I do like, kind of based on how much of a favorite they are. And it's not really that I want to diss the Oilers that much, but I think it's just so hard to come out and have that kind of a regular season. You need a lot to go right. And I'm not convinced that they're so much deeper than all these other top teams that they deserve to be that short. So I like the Oilers to win the Cup. That's an incredibly, common take. I think I saw on Sportsnet they had a panel of 16 people. 14 of them picked the Oilers as their favorite, or as their pick to win the Cup, which in hockey is pretty crazy. That's like NBA stuff in some of these Warriors years, right? So, it's, I think, gotten a little out of control. I don't think it's really worth backing them in any of these markets early on. I'd kind of like to see how they start. Even if they have a reasonable start, these markets are going to hold because these are just such low numbers for the NHL.
Right. Yeah.
So,
you mentioned that, obviously, and you mentioned the President's Trophy and how maybe the Oilers are, because of their high price, that there's other teams that are undervalued. So let's focus in on the President's Trophy with your favorite future that's still currently available in the market. You're obviously going to say back the New York Rangers, right, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, the Rangers had a great opening night. They showed me because I didn't like them in that game, but I actually like their division rival, the Devils, to win the President's Trophy. And people are kind of arguing back and forth on this based off how far down the standings the Devils were last year. But I think they're going to bounce back and be closer to the 113-point team they were the year before. You look at it from the coaching side of things, I think Lindy Ruff, who's off to a horrible start in Buffalo right now, is just a dated coach who's probably not in the league anymore if he didn't have so much success, 15 years ago. So I think they get a big upgrade there with Sheldon Keefe. At least in the regular season, he's had a ton of success. They cleared up they had the third worst save percentage last season. Now they bring in Jacob Markstrom, who is tremendous with the Flames last year on a really bad team. And I think Jake Allen is a better than average backup, which is a really important thing in this market. I think that's what powered Boston to a win in this, having Ullmark and Swayman and such high point totals, because you just gain so many more points on the other teams if you have a better than average backup. Whereas I look at a team like the Rangers this year, Jonathan Quick proved me wrong last season, but I don't know if he will again. I think Jake Allen's definitely better than him. I think he's a better backup than a lot of the President's contenders have. You look at a team like Colorado, I think they have a lot more question marks as well. And then, the depth on the back end is already proving huge because, through 3 games, they've gotten pretty good play from their fill-ins with Brett Pesce and Luke Hughes injured. So they're kind of already proving that if they have a couple guys out, they can still be a pretty competitive team. And then I love all the guys in their top 6. I think Timo Meier's going to bounce back and have a huge year. Love Jack Hughes. I think he could push for the MVP this season. So the case for the Devils at 11-1 looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, 2-1 this season, sweeping the series in Prague against Buffalo, who I know some people were high on entering this season to take a step forward. And the Devils just kind of put an end to that right off the rip with how well they're performing. You mentioned Markstrom, such a huge addition to the Devils as a whole. You know what? I'll take you still fading the Rangers. I know you're going to keep doing it every night, every week, and they keep on winning eventually. Hopefully, the Stanley Cup's in their grasp. But let's move to tonight's games in particular. I know there's one of your favorite bets is out with an underdog. We got the Flyers heading to Vancouver to take on the Canucks, and you like the Flyers here as a plus 150 dog.
Yeah, I think this is a great spot to take on the Flyers as a big underdog. They're such a scrappy side at the start of last season, and now you look at the roster. There's a lot of guys who should be better, if anything. I like Cam York a lot on the back end. I think Jamie Drysdale had an excellent preseason, so that could leave them with a pretty good top 2 pairings. And then Matvei Michkov could be the kind of game-breaking talent that they've needed for so long. They've had the worst power play in the league 3 years in a row. And I think he should, as much as people are worried about Torts giving him some leash, I think it's pretty safe to say that he will stick on the top power play and help power it to more success. So that kind of makes the case for Philly. And then Vancouver has just been a team that I'm low on relative to the market all summer. I think that they're getting a ton of credit for what they did last season. I see them as somewhere between the team they were last season and the team they were the year before when things really fell apart. I think that we won't see them hold the league's highest 5-on-5 shooting percentage again. Teams tend to not do that back-to-back years. And then I look at the bottom 4 defensively. I think that's a big question mark. And then right now they're playing without last year's Vezina runner-up in Thatcher Demko, so that just has to lower their power ranking a lot. They will probably go with Kevin Lankinen in this game that I think will prove to be the better of the 2 options currently with Thatcher Demko sidelined. But this number just feels a little crazy to me, and it's actually ticked up since Vancouver's opening night game, which is interesting because I didn't think they looked real good. Their power play looked good, but at 5-on-5, they were giving up some pretty good chances to a Flames team that people don't expect to be very good. And then, we talked about the goaltending concerns. So I just think this is going to end up being a more competitive game than this price suggests.
Yeah, 6-5 overtime loss for Vancouver in their opening night game to the Flames. And you mentioned it. Demko's absence definitely looms large and feels like the Flyers are a little undervalued, even with that number rising, that plus 150 number. So Nick Martin, best of luck tonight. Appreciate you hopping on, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you very soon about the pucks.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Charlie.
And just a friendly reminder that any pick that you hear on the show, you can easily reference by following us in the award-winning Action Network app, where it is all tracked under the handle @green.daily. We keep track so you don't have to. That's going to be all for me on this Friday. Happy weekend, everybody. Enjoy the nonstop football. Enjoy the 2 Game 5s in the AL and NLDS. I'll be back here Monday, 3 Eastern on the Action YouTube channel and the Action app. Get out of here.